home can have enough floor space and still feel strangely cramped. Sometimes the problem isn't the size of the room, it's how much is competing for your attention every time you walk into it. Bags on the floor, crowded worktops, chargers, bottles, papers, and small objects that never seem to have a permanent place. That's where Japanese home organization offers a useful lens. Not because every Japanese home follows the same formula, but because one idea found in Japanese design is especially helpful here: the interval pause or space between things. Empty space doesn't always need filling. Sometimes it's part of what makes a room work. And once you start looking at a home that way, making a small space feel bigger becomes less about gaining square meters and more about reducing what interrupts them. Here are 12 practical rules you can try. The first is to protect visible floor space. Imagine a small bedroom. There's a laundry basket beside the wardrobe, a stack of books beside the bed, shoes near the door, and 2 storage boxes tucked beneath a chair. None of those things seems particularly bad, but together they divide the visible floor into lots of smaller pieces. Now, remove just a few of them. The shoes go into a narrow cabinet. The books move onto a shelf. The laundry basket fits inside the wardrobe. The measurements of the room haven't changed, but more of the floor can now be seen as one continuous area, and the room can immediately feel less crowded. So, before putting something at ground level, ask a different question. Not, can I fit it here? But does it actually need to live on the floor? Rule 2 is to use height before width. When storage becomes tight, the instinct is often to spread sideways. Another basket, another little cabinet, another table in the corner. The trouble is that every extra object at floor level takes something away from movement. Look upwards instead. In a kitchen, a wall rail can move utensils away from the worktop. A shelf above a desk can replace storage sitting beside it. Hooks inside cupboard doors can use space that was previously doing nothing. You're using the same room. You're simply moving some of its storage out of the way of your body, and in a compact home that matters. Third, treat surfaces as places for active use, not as permanent parking. A kitchen worktop can be perfectly tidy and still look busy. The toaster blender, vitamins, oil bottles, fruit bowl, post, and shopping bag might all be neatly arranged, but the surface is still full. Decide what genuinely earns permanent access. Perhaps the kettle stays because you use it several times a day. The blender you use on Sundays probably doesn't need the same privilege. The same rule works for bedside tables, desks, and coffee tables. You don't need them completely empty. You simply want enough clear area that the surface can still do its actual job. Rule 4 is to group small objects. 6 bottles standing separately on a shelf can read as 6 separate things. Put those same bottles into one simple tray, and they can feel more like one visual group. Nothing has been thrown away. Nothing has been hidden. You've simply made the scene easier to read. Try it with oils beside the cooker, remote controls in the living room, toiletries in the bathroom, or small everyday objects near the front door. And don't turn this into an excuse to buy 20 matching organizers. An existing tray or basket may be enough. The goal isn't container perfection, it's visual order. Rule 5, give frequently used objects a permanent home. A surprising amount of everyday clutter is temporary. Keys on the table, a handbag beside the sofa, post on the kitchen counter, a jumper over the back of a chair. These aren't necessarily things you should get rid of. They're things that haven't been given an obvious destination. Near the entrance, perhaps, one small tray becomes the place for keys and headphones. In the bedroom, one hook becomes the place for tomorrow's clothes instead of an entire chair. The easier an object's home is to understand, the less decision-making is required when you put it away. That's important because a system that is easy to reset has a better chance of surviving an ordinary Tuesday. Rule 6 is to make larger pieces of furniture earn their space. An ottoman might store blankets. A bed can have drawers underneath. A bench near the entrance might also hold shoes. A dining table can double as a work surface. That doesn't mean every piece of furniture needs a secret compartment. The point is to notice when a small room contains several large objects that each solve only one occasional problem. Sometimes the better choice isn't smaller furniture. It's fewer pieces doing more useful work. Rule 7 is to limit decoration by area. This doesn't mean stripping personality from your home. Books, photographs, plants, ceramics, and objects collected over years are often what make a place feel like yours. The problem comes when every shelf, tabletop, and patch of wall becomes a display area. Try choosing where decoration gets to be concentrated. Perhaps one shelf holds several things you love, while the shelf beside it stays mostly clear. Instead of scattering small framed photographs across the room, you might group them in one deliberate area. This is where the idea of may becomes useful. The empty area around an object can help the object stand out. Space isn't necessarily the absence of design. It can be part of the design. Rule 8. Declutter before you buy storage. This sounds obvious. It's also very easy to ignore. A cupboard becomes messy, so you buy organizers. Then you carefully organize everything already inside it, including things you don't use. The cupboard looks better, but it's still full. Before buying another box basket or drawer divider, take one small area and remove everything. Then decide what genuinely deserves to go back. A kitchen drawer may contain 3 tools that do nearly the same job. A wardrobe may contain clothes you've moved from one hanger to another for 2 years without wearing. Storage is useful, but storage works much better after you've decided what is actually worth storing. Rule 9 is to protect pathways. A room isn't only something you look at, it's something you move through. If you have to turn sideways around a chair every morning, step around a basket beside the bed, or avoid the corner of a coffee table, each time you cross the living room, the room keeps reminding you of its limits. Notice the routes you use repeatedly. Door to sofa, bed to wardrobe, kitchen entrance to fridge. Try to make those journeys simple. Sometimes moving one chair by 15 centimeters improves a room more than buying another organizer. Rule 10 is to search inside your existing storage before adding more storage outside it. Open a kitchen cupboard and look properly. There may be a large empty gap above a short stack of bowls. A simple shelf riser could create another level. Inside a wardrobe, the top may be almost empty, while everything below is compressed. A cupboard door might have enough room for lightweight hooks or a shallow rack. This isn't about filling every centimeter because empty space makes you nervous. It's about using hidden capacity intelligently so that the visible room doesn't have to absorb everything. Rule 11 is one in, one out. Selectively. You don't need to apply this to every possession. That quickly becomes rigid. Use it for the categories that quietly multiply: mugs, t-shirts, shoes, food containers, decorative cushions. If that category has already reached a comfortable limit, bringing something new home can be a reminder to reconsider something old. Because most clutter doesn't arrive in one dramatic delivery. It grows gradually, one completely reasonable purchase at a time. And the final rule is probably the least glamorous. Reset the room for 5 minutes at the end of the day. Not a deep clean, not an elaborate evening routine. 5 minutes. Return the cups to the kitchen. Put the remote controls back. Clear the coffee table. Hang up the jacket. Return a few things that migrated during the day. A home is used, so objects will move. That's normal. The purpose of a reset isn't to keep your home permanently perfect. It's simply to restore the default before several days of small disorder become a Saturday afternoon project. And over time, that default becomes easier to recognize. A clear path, some visible floor, a few quieter surfaces, objects with obvious homes, useful furniture, and enough empty space that not every corner is asking to hold something. None of these rules changes the actual size of your home. That's the point. A room can feel crowded before it is physically full. Research on visual attention shows that cluttered scenes can make it harder to select relevant information, and studies of interior spaces suggest that the amount of furniture can influence how spacious a room feels. But you don't need to turn your home into a laboratory to notice the practical version of this. Walk into one room tonight and look around. What is your eye being asked to notice? What are you stepping around? What is sitting somewhere simply because it has nowhere better to go? What surface has stopped being useful because it has become storage? Then change one thing, not the entire house. One thing, because sometimes you don't need a bigger home. You need a home that asks a little less from your eyes, a little less from your attention, and leaves a little more room to breathe.